Are you live?
Good evening. Now I call to order public budget hearing meeting of the Town of Pembroke Park today, Wednesday, September 10, 2025, 6:05. Pledge of allegiance. To the flag of America. And to the republic.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Jacobs is absent. Vice Mayor Kashem.
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammmed.
Here.
Clerk Commissioner Hodgkins.
Here.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Morrissette.
Here.
Vice Mayor, you have a quorum.
Are there any deletions or withdrawals? No? Any public comments? No? Resolution 6.1, consideration and approval. Attorney?
Madam Vice Mayor, Commission, good evening. For the record, we're here this evening pursuant to Chapter 200.065 of the Florida statutes. This is your first of two public hearings on both a tentative proposed millage rate as well as the tentative budget for the upcoming fiscal year. In accordance with the statute, we'd first consider the millage rate followed by the budget. Your finance director has a presentation on both items. The presentation will be combined, but there'll be separate action on each item. Item 6.1 is the consideration and approval of a resolution adopting a tentative millage rate of 8.5000 mils for fiscal year 2025-26, which is 8.04% more than the rollback rate of 7.8676 mils. That's per $1,000 of taxable property value in the town. And for the record, that public announcement is required by the statute. The first item is Resolution 2025-031, a resolution of the Town Commission, the Town of Pembroke Park, Florida, adopting a proposed millage rate of 8.5000 mils for the general operating budget purposes for fiscal year 2025-2026, providing for the establishment of and setting forth the date, time, and location of a public hearing to formally adopt the fiscal year 2025-26 millage rate, providing for conflicts, severability, providing for an effective date. On the floor for your consideration, Madam Vice Mayor.
Finance Director, please present your presentation.
Thank you for allowing.
Yeah.
It's not on.
How about? Oh, okay. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present next year's budget proposal for the town of Pembroke Park. My name is James Davermann. I'm the finance director for the town. I've been in role 1 year, and the fact that I'm here today represents a great opportunity to help guide the town's financial performance and to basically just show just how well we've been managing our funds. So on that note, I'll start with this budget presentation. So the town is composed of 4 funds, as you know. We've got our governmental funds, which are the general and then special revenue fund, AKA building. And we've got the sewer and stormwater fund, which are our enterprise funds, due to the fact that we charge services for providing that. We charge a fee for providing services within those funds. Now, I want to start off by giving you a complete picture of the town's net financial position based on the last audit that we had. We had to perform multiple restatements to get to the actual number, but this is the clearest picture that I can paint for the town's exact financial position as of the end of last year going into this fiscal year. And so you'll see that when you look at our government funds, our ending balance is about 11.4 million, 11.3 million. Our general fund has 9 million in reserves. Our building fund has approximately 2 million in reserves. And when you move on to enterprise, our unrestricted sewer fund has close to 7 million in reserves, and our stormwater fund has 9.2 million in reserves. So our ending fund balance for the entire town is $25.2 million. You want to think of that as the number that you anchor yourself to should we face an emergency of cataclysmic proportions. That's the actual cash that we would have on hand to deal with any issues as they occur. Looking at our millage rate, so you'll see it remains unchanged as far as our proposal. It's been the same for the last 6 or 7 years. And so that's given us a predictable way to look at our ad valorem. The increase has been linear year over year. We're looking at about roughly a 10% average annual growth rate in ad valorem. And so we're anticipating we'll hit around 10.4 million in ad valorem in fiscal year 2026. So these are the budget headlines that I'd like you to anchor yourselves to. These are essentially the highlights that are included throughout the budget that represent exactly where the town stands at this particular moment in time. And it takes into account all of the assumptions, all the calculations that we put in, and basically gives you a complete idea of what went into creating this budget from the bottoms up. I sat with every single department head when we went over this, and we ensured there were three principles I kept at play each time when we discussed anything. First was that we spent, these are taxpayer dollars, so we take them very seriously. The first was that we spend everything intentionally. Second is that we spend each dollar meaningfully with the intent of driving the most impact within the town. And the third was that I got all of the input specifically from department heads to run their departments as efficiently as they could. So intentionally, meaningfully, and efficiently. And so we used a zero-based budgeting process where I ignored all previous trends and I had every department start from zero. And each department head had to justify every single expense in every single line item. This is a very painstaking process. It's a very long process. But again, they approached it with good faith. They requested certain things. We did some horse trading, and they gave up certain things. But the idea was to make sure that their departments were running as efficiently as possible. And so when you look at some of these headlines, our taxable values will increase to $1.3 billion in the town, which is, and assuming we keep a millage of 8.5, that's an $800,000 increase in ad valorem going into fiscal year 2026. We already covered the $25 million in total fund balance. I was able to assume a 5% COLA for all of our employees going into next year. And thanks to some, and I stood before you here during the mid-year budget review to let you know that I wanted to augment our community events budget. And thanks to some lobbying from Commissioner Mohammmed, we were able to do that, and we increased our budget for community events 100%. Now, I've been in this town a year. I've seen the impact and the engagement that the community has had when we've thrown events. This is one of the best ways to serve the community, and I'm very proud of the fact that we're able to, again, continuously add events. We've standardized Juneteenth, for example. We're looking at a special culture fest. We're adding events, but we've got a very robust budget to run them. We went over our budget for all of our events last year because they were so successful. And so now the idea is to ensure that we bring the town the maximum bang for its buck. Our police department is built out as complete. One of my first opportunities as a finance professional here was to run the numbers on their new CBA agreement. And so we were able to build out the department, and they're only expecting 2 or 3 additional heads going into next year. But we have a fully upright police department, which the town can be very proud of. The town itself is also fully staffed. Again, we're expecting 3 additional headcount going into the next year. And that actually represents more good news, because you'll notice our contractors, as a percentage of total spend, now represent less than 35% of total town expenses. That number was above 60. The number was at 62% in 2019. Now, what that means is, aside from the fact that it's much easier on our procurement department, we're able to become more self-sufficient as a town, and we're able to retain all of the in-house expertise of our own employees without having to churn, going through different contractors and renegotiating contracts at the end of the year. And so it makes our budget more predictable. It helps us retain a lot of our most important information. And again, it allows us to run more efficiently. Our rate of budget increase across all 4 funds due to our zero-based budget will only increase by 1% versus last year. That's pretty remarkable given the environment that we're in, the fact that we're fully staffed, we've got additional community projects, and we've got all of, and the town, again, is running well. When you look at ARPA, we've expended 1.1 million in ARPA funds. We've obligated every single dollar. There's almost every single dollar. We'll have to return 48 cents of unspent dollars that we could not obligate. And so going into next year, we'll be able to fully expend our ARPA funds on projects, again, that serve the community. And our general fund spending versus last year is only expected to increase 8.5%. We had a 33% increase in the prior year, partly because of CapEx and partly because of building out our police department. So that 8.5% actually brings us back in line to our historical growth rate within the town. So again, very remarkable, and it shows that we're using the anticipated increase in ad valorem as efficiently and responsibly as possible, which I wanted to, again, emphasize. Now, when you look at these millage rate scenarios, our town attorney already advised on what the rollback rate was. And so if we were to maintain the same revenues that we received this year, our rollback would be 7.8676 versus the 8.5 projection. So that would be a $94 million difference to baseline. As I mentioned, our total taxable values now are just below $1.3 billion. So we're looking at an 8% tax increase and our ad valorem increase of $804,000 going into the next fiscal year. So this is the overall fund summary. And if you look at the chart in the upper right, again, you will see that, again, we've increased spending 1% across multiple lines. General government has remained flat. That's our operating. We've increased our public safety budget to reflect building out our police department. Culture and recreation has gone up significantly as a result of our emphasis on community events. Public Works is seeing an increase as well, and we have a permanent Public Works director in place. And our capital outlays are where we're seeing some savings for now, because again, we're still working on our capital improvement plan, and we're still trying to nail down exactly what projects we'll take into the following fiscal year. So what I did was I set aside pools of money specifically to deal with paying for design or any seeding of any potential projects until we were able to finalize that particular list and ways to finance anything additional. So for the general fund, we're looking at about 19.7 million total expenditures. Building will be flat, relatively speaking. They always come in at just under $1 million. Stormwater fund, we're looking at 4.4 million expenses with a $3.5 million capital outlay, again, for projects that will serve the town. And for the sewer fund, we're looking at roughly 4 million with 550,000 set aside for capital outlay. That's again for design going forward. So overall, we're looking at 29 million in total expenditures versus 28.8 in the previous year. So again, a 1% increase year over year. When you think about what inflation has looked like in recent years, when you think about some of the more aggressive cost increases that, you know, able to keep things flat year over year speaks volumes. And so now take a look at the general fund more closely. So again, we have the 1.3 billion in taxable values. That's a 6-year CAGR of about 8%. Now I wasn't able to project forward any further because I'm not certain what the impact of some of the proposals for dealing with property tax in the state of Florida going forward are going to look like. But assuming things remain constant, you can plug in anywhere from 8 to 10% as your assumptive growth rate going forward. Now, once we have our total expected revenues as a result of a percentage of what our taxable values are, we're allowed to retain 96% specifically for budgeting purposes, which is where that $10.4 million number comes from. The rest goes directly into our reserves. Now, this is the drawdown for the ARPA funds. We originally received 3.4 million. In prior years, we'd spent 487,000. In 2025, year to date, we've spent roughly 700,000. And rest assured, we're getting the money out the door as quickly as possible. And so we have a $2 million balance that we have a year left to spend. So that will be exciting to see what that scenario plays like as we get these funds out the door. But rest assured, they've all been obligated and assigned to specific projects. Any unused funds have to be returned to the federal government. Our unobligated balance is 48 cents, as I mentioned. Now, the ARPA funds remain in the general fund, but they're eligible for use on any project that the town designates. And these are our expected general fund revenues. Ad valorem is right up on top. The only noticeable difference are the miscellaneous revenues. This reflects the drop, the elimination of BTR. And as you can see, even with that, we're still looking at an 8% revenue increase. So safe to say the BTR elimination was not very material and did not impact our ability to plan going forward. But our property taxes, again, are our highest revenue generating component. Next is grant revenue. That's mostly made up of the ARPA funds. And then we've got our utility and franchise services that have gone up, that are going up 9% and 14%. And we expect to see some increases in licensing and permitting, given all the new developments going on in town, et cetera. So that's up 49%. But again, 8% total change in revenues year over year, reflecting, again, the increase in ad valorem, as that's the principal driver. So this is our projected roster and our fully loaded compensation for next year. We expect to have 75 employees, give or take. And out of the 5 employees that we have listed here, the open roles, they consist of 1 legislative aide. 1 commissioner still does not have a legislative aide on staff. 2 to 3 officers, I rounded up to 3, depending on how the grant situation works out with the police, and 1 possible facilities maintenance person for parks. I haven't gotten a definitive answer on whether we're absolutely hiring this person or not, but I kept it open just to be on the safe side. So we're looking at around $10 million in total payroll. And this does not include, and this includes a 5% COLA. Looking further at the general fund, you'll see that our 2 biggest drivers are general government, of course, and public safety. We can absolutely now be known as a public safety focused town, where police and fire constitute a large portion of the budget. And of course, our police department is in-house, so we're able to, again, deliver better service for what's being allocated. Culture and recreation is also going up significantly, and our capital outlays are roughly flat, depending on what our capital improvement plan our final number comes out to. Now, when you look at this particular chart, if you look at the bottom where I've circled things in green, you'll see what the annual growth rates have been in total spending, and this includes all overhead. And again, we rose 33% last year, and because, again, we switched to a zero-based model, we're able to reduce the increase to 8.5%, which keeps us in line with our historical increases, which have been between 8 and 9.2% historically. So this, again, was very deliberately done, and a lot of the savings come from contractual services and CapEx principally. And you'll see, I will take us down 1 level deeper and break this down by department. And you'll see that if you look to the far right, green will represent moderate to, green represents decreases in year-over-year growth to moderate increases year-over-year. Yellow represents slightly higher increases, and red are outliers. Now, of course, HR is red, and it's increasing 204% because we actually hired a person in HR, whereas we had contracted a service before. And parks, all of our events run through parks, so the parks increase of 64% represents the increase to our community events budget. But again, you see quite a bit of green on this list. We were able to keep costs pretty moderate, again, because we had department heads who were willing to give up certain things and help plan responsibly while maintaining high level of quality. Finance, you'll see, has gone up 47%. It's because I took on 2 additional heads. We have a procurement manager now who's a dedicated procurement manager to ensure that all of our rules are being followed going into our next audit. And we have a dedicated AP clerk whose sole function is to process the influx of invoices that we've been receiving. Some other highlights, and again, this represents a fully staffed workforce for the town. Some other highlights, you'll see police, it's gone up 41%, but again, that represents the full completed build-out. Prior to that, it had hovered around 4 million and change while things were in flux. And with code enforcement, we're seeing a big decrease. We've got one head in code enforcement, and in planning, we're seeing another big decrease because our building manager, Jeff, was so graciously willing to accept additional responsibilities to keep the costs lower on that line. So again, a lot of credit goes to our department heads for being so responsible when it comes to our planning and accounting for every single dollar. Now, when you look at our total expenditures at 19.7, obviously 41% of it is being driven by compensation, which is actually a very good number. I checked the budgets for 4 or 5 other towns, and that number usually hovers somewhere over 50%. So we're actually very fortunate there. And every other line item is in the single digits, including overhead, which we've managed to keep really low, lobbying, and other contractual services. Obviously, fire is the outlier here. But again, that's something that we had the contract out of necessity. And our CapEx is at around 11%. When you look at our general park expenditures broken down by function, you see that the biggest increase is taking place with public safety and culture and recreation. As I've reiterated over and over, this is just a different cut of the data. But again, if we wanted to orient the average citizen, they'd understand that if they're going to be part of Pembroke Park, they're going to have access to great events, they're going to have the best law enforcement service in town, and they're going to have a general government that's very, very stable. Now, the town maintains minimal debt. We have a single $2 million loan that was issued in 2020 for the police build-out. We got a 2% interest rate on it, 1.96 actually, which is phenomenal. And our current outstanding balance is 1.6 million. We pay about roughly $22,000 a month for the next 5 years until the loan is cleared. But yeah, so the town is not only has a strong level of reserves, it's carrying very little debt on the books. So that keeps it flexible to deal with any issues, as they potentially arise. This is just the labor overview. Once again, you'll see we've got one commission member, one legislative aide for the commission, 2 officers, and 1 potential person for road and streets. So it's safe to say that the town is nearly fully staffed. And IT will also be bringing on a network support specialist full-time. And so that will, again, minimize our reliance on contractors, and we can consider the town fully self-sufficient. When you look at the labor overview, police drive the biggest chunk of our labor costs, and then everything else is in the single digits. So it shows that we've been able to distribute funds across the departments fairly evenly. There aren't any significant outliers in this group. And when you look at our general fund expenditures by category, again, we're looking at just about a 9% increase overall within the general fund, with the big savings coming from CapEx and minimal overhead. And these are expenditures by department. And again, through the general fund, we're looking at about a 14% increase. But again, no major storylines emerged here aside from the fact that we completely built out the police department. And so this is an overview of our reserves for the general fund. We have roughly $9.3 million in estimated reserves. Now, GFOA requires you to set aside $2 million when you're planning your budget. I'm sorry, 2 months of expected reserves when you're planning your budget. We've been able to do that quite easily. And so that leaves a balance of 5.9, let's call it $6 million. And so that's what the number you want to anchor yourself to in terms of operating the general fund. But again, we've been able to meet all of our reserve requirements pretty easily. Going into sewer and stormwater, we actually recommend 6 months due to the frequency of large capital projects and the unpredictability of said projects. And again, we were able to set aside fairly easily 6 months of reserves in both cases. So if you were to pressure test this budget to try to figure out what the town's ability to absorb unexpected costs are, you'd see that we'd be in a very advantageous position here. And we've, got enough reserves to help deal with anything that may come. When I go into the building fund, again, you'll see the building roughly has been flat year over year. They're not adding additional headcount. The only change in building has been the elimination of BTR, but we expect their actual revenue to remain pretty constant again due to building permits, plan reviews, etc. Because we expect a lot of additional activity in the town. But again, it's just fair to call building flat year over year with a 7% increase. And yeah, despite the loss of BTR, revenue is projected to increase. We have additional planned developments, and those revenue sources are going to come primarily from permits, inspection fees, plan reviews. When you look at building over time, with the exception of that outlier 2023 year, it's always hovered at or around a million, give or take. And this is the P&L for building. You'll notice the compensation has increased because we've added one building official this year. But again, everything else remains flat. And they're fully staffed. Any additional services they expect would naturally be contracted out. And as you can see, they've got roughly $2 million in reserves. And again, they were able to meet the 2-month reserve threshold. When I go into stormwater, you'll notice a revenue decline on the revenue slide here, and that has to do to a non-recurrence of grants that we received for the Southwest 25th Street project. Now we're rolling over a Broward MAP grant of $318K in the fiscal year 2026, and we expect to increase fees. We expect to receive an increase in fees totaling around $1.5 million for the services charged for stormwater. And in terms of spending, we were able to reduce that by about 30% due to a decrease in capital outlays. We have roughly $3.6 million in capital outlays. We budgeted $5 million going into the previous year, and so that has been a significant driver of some of the savings that we're able to accrue here. And when you look at their actual P&L, you'll see that revenues are going to remain constant. We typically make about $3 million. We typically make about $1.5 million in charges for services, $2 million overall in revenue. And on the CapEx side, out of that $3.5 million, $2.5 is to support the John P. Lyons project, and then we have a $900,000 CapEx set aside for design. And when you look at their expenditures year over year, you'll see that trend of significant declines continuing. And so we've been able to generate about $800,000 in savings from CapEx and lower overhead. And no new hires are expected in fiscal year 26. They are fully staffed. Base comp is about 64% of their total payroll, and they generate very little overtime compared to the average. All right. Going into sewer now. We expect a 10% increase in sewer expenditures. Our charge for service, we expect to gain about $3 million, which will be in line with our average previous year's revenues. And on the capital outlay side, we set aside a $550. Again, that's seed money for projects and design. When you look at our revenue sources, basically comfortable within that $3 million range. Most of it comes from charges for services, and a combination of charges for services and interest income, as depicted here. And again, this is the P&L for the sewer fund. Again, so we're going from $4.7 million in 2025 to $3.9 million in 2026. Now, compensation has gone up, but you'll see that there's a huge reduction in repairs and maintenance. You know, we think we can get by on half of what we spent in the previous year because there are a lot of repairs that aren't going to reoccur. And that offsets slightly an increase in contractual services. 1.8 million of it being the sewer treatment contract that we have with the city of Hollywood. So that one's actually fairly predictable. So we didn't need to augment that line by much. So again, you know, we're generating roughly 800,000 in savings from sewer fund as well. When you look at their expenditures year over year, very small increase. I didn't include a percentage here, but it's only 360,000 year over year. And some of the highlights there, sewer is actually going to add 2 additional employees. Or they've already added 2 additional employees, a project manager and operations admin. I've got 500K in open CapEx. I call it open CapEx because it needs to be assigned to something. And well, that assignment is pending. And then the overhead transfer is reduced to 0 because again, we're carrying very little overhead this year because everything we've invested in the town via ARPA funds, et cetera, this year. And they're fully staffed. And their increase in compensation year over year is being driven by 2 additional heads that we described before. And so these are the next steps. Our first hearing date is today. We're going to need to advertise a second meeting with the budget numbers. And the budget numbers that we're going to use for the advertisement are this right here, which gives you the spending across 4 funds. So 29 million, again, is what you want to anchor yourself to. We're going to have the second hearing in less than 2 weeks. I'm actually meeting with Tyler tomorrow to discuss uploading the budget into the system once we have the final approval. So that will happen on 9/30, and then we start our fiscal year in October. Now, our final date to submit changes and updates, this is a very optimistic final date. I had 9/19 set aside, but you know, I'll be taking changes and updates probably through a couple days before that final budget hearing. And I've also advised department heads that the door will close on all new POs, et cetera, by the middle of the month, so that I can have a chance to make sure that we're caught up on all revenues and all of our reporting for this year, and so that I can prepare to roll things over into next year. But yes, that concludes our budget presentation. Happy to take any questions or clear up any concerns.
How do Hollywood invoice us for sewer treatment? Is that calculated from water usage or?
Yes, I don't remember this rate specifically, but they come in at a very similar dollar amount per month. I think it's something like.
So it's calculated on how much water we use, and then they assume that comes back for treatment.
Correct.
That's it. Okay.
If I can just speak briefly to that, Mr. Commissioner, Madam Vice Mayor. So, and I know we've limitedly addressed this in the past, we're members of what's referred to as the Large User Agreement. It's an agreement among 6 municipalities in this general area of Broward County that all contract with Broward County for some sewer disposal. There's a methodology in that agreement. I know that Commissioner Hodgkins and I have discussed it, and I think with the commission as well, that's been challenged in recent years by the city of Pembroke Pines. I think Hollandale, Pembroke Park, Pembroke Pines, Miramar used to be a member. Broward County is one of the large users. That issue, the Pembroke Pines litigation is currently on appeal. I have some sense that it may be nearing resolution. There may be some opportunity to contact Hollywood and reach out for some discussions as it relates to the methodology that they use to assess that particular amount and apportion a certain amount of that collection to Pembroke Park. But we're part of an overall system through that relationship that goes back into the late 80s, where Hollywood serves as a sewer disposal facility for a number of the related municipalities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're saying end of the year, 2026, we're going to have reserved 2 million?
For which, depends on which fund you're looking at.
Like it says sewer reserve, the last one?
I'm sorry, repeat your question?
So end of the year 2026, we're going to have a reserve 2 million.
Oh, you mean the surplus? Yes, that's what we're budgeting in. I'm expecting 22 million in revenues, and I've budgeted us at 19.7, give or take, in the general fund. So we're going to have a $2 million surplus there. And overall, we expect 29 million in spending roughly. We expect we'll get about 31 million in total across the 4 funds, about $2 million, give or take. So correct.
So right now we do have a like 1 million something reserve in our.
Right now, yeah. Right now we're roughly at about 1.5 million, and people are trying to get money out of the door. So I've not updated it yet as of last week, but by the middle of the month, I should have a total number of. I'll know exactly what our surplus is that will automatically roll over into our reserves going into next year.
Commissioner discussion? Public comments? Closing public comments?
Madam Vice Chairman, I did have a brief question for the Finance Director. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. There was an item you mentioned somewhere earlier in your discussion, and just for the benefit of the public in general, that item was, you talked about, used a methodology called zero-based budgeting. And would you tell the commissioners and the rest of the public what that means and how that enabled you to reduce the growth rate?
Certainly, Mr. Town Manager. During the normal budgeting process, the easiest way to make an assumption or the easiest way to make a projection is to look at the rate of growth in a particular line item and just continue with that rate of growth. Doesn't require much thinking. You can handle it very quickly, but it may not represent the most efficient way to spend the money that you have at your disposal. And so with a zero-based budget, what I do is reset every line item to zero. And each department head at that point has to then justify what they want to spend for each line item. In many cases, they'll find it's a very easy way to extract any kind of wasteful spending or aggressive spending, because in many cases, they will then try to put input the minimum that they need to get something done, rather than the number that's just nice to have or that just continues a trend. And by justify it, they have to look at what they've planned for the year and determine exactly what amount applies to what they've planned for the year. So instead of just making a lazy assumption and saying, oh, well, I spent 33% last year, so let's just spend another 33% this year, which is not sustainable at all by any means. They had to actually plan out what they needed each dollar for. And I pressed them very hard. We went back and forth, and, they really had to make a strong case for each dollar that got spent. And when you do that, you're able to easily extract a lot of the spending that may not be necessary or just maybe extra budget that, you want to cushion something. And it forces you to work more efficiently with the money that you do have allocated. And so we tried it across all 4 funds. We saw a 1% increase. In the general fund, we saw an 8% increase versus 33% last year. So we were able to extract a lot of savings while still increasing our budget and allocating enough funds to do everything that the town wants to do to continue to be successful.
Is that?
Yeah, an additional question, if I could. I defer to the former mayor, though.
Do you have any?
No, okay. I have an additional question, if I could have him expound on something. One of the things that we have done in putting this budget together, as you know, in the meetings you've had, is that, and we compare very favorably to our surrounding communities, and this is what we've done. The percentage of monies that were spent as related to contracting services out was at 62%, and then it went down to 33% this year. So essentially,
Correct.
What we've been finding is that there are a lot of things that we do ourselves or their own people where it's less expensive to do it that way than to have a contract. Now, there are some communities right around us where their contracted services are much higher than ours. As a result of that, they're spending a lot more money, because the problem with the contract is if you got a bad contract, you may not be able to terminate that contract. In that contract, you're also absorbing all the overhead, the administrative staff, the pension requirements, and all the things that that company has. And so there's kind of been a shift. We've gone from where we've got contract services in a large amount, and that has shrunk significantly, almost by half. And instead, we have our own people working here. And the other advantage of that is where you may not have a termination opportunity with a contract, everybody who's an employee here is an at-will employee. You can make any adjustment that you want to. So I'm very proud of the fact that on a per capita basis, compared to surrounding communities, we're actually getting much more bang for our buck because of the fact that we're willing to have our own people with their own expertise to solve the problems without having to rely on a contractor who isn't available all the time and may not always respond in the ways that we want them to. So I just am very proud of the fact that Mr. Davermann has been able to make this, I'll almost call it a culture change. Instead of picking up the phone and saying, hey, who can we get to solve this problem? We turn inward and say, who's here already that's on our staff that can solve these problems? And as you can tell from the way the numbers shake out, they've been solving those problems internally. So I just wanted to highlight that element of it because you mentioned it, but I wanted to sort of re-emphasize it.
May I follow up your comment for additional re-emphasis? Just wanted to bring you back to the P&L for the town's general fund. If you look at contractual services in 2019, we had just under 12 million in total expenses, and 7 million of it was in contractors. Now, you can make a case for bringing along contractors if there's some sort of esoteric, uniquely specialized knowledge that they have that the town might need in short notice. And, of course, you've got to have a contractor do things for you. But we've seen that there are some cities that are exclusively contractor-based, or they outsource significant chunks of running their government. And that just causes massive expense disparities. So that's one thing to risk. And as the town manager pointed out, the fact that we're able to retain so much expertise in-house, it shows you how diligent our commissioners have been in recruiting talented individuals to run our departments and work as part of our staff. And so the more that we're able to retain that, again, the more efficiently we're able to spend the dollars that we have allocated. And if you look at our proposed budget, you'll see that our contractual services, we're looking at 6.4 million on almost $20 million worth of spending. So cutting that number in half is huge, is a huge savings for the town. And the more that we're able to retain that expertise and that talent in-house, it only gets better for us. It allows us to work on additional projects and allows us to leverage their talents in other unique ways, that may benefit the town without us having to go through a protracted renegotiation. So those are just some things I wanted to emphasize, and and also wanted to say that it's great that the town has become so self-sufficient in such a short period of time. Again, it's a testament to the eye for talent that our leaders and our commissioners have had here in staffing our departments, because we're also fully staffed going forward. So these numbers are only going to continue to improve. Thank you.
Do I have a motion for approval, Resolution 2025031? Anyone second?
I'll second.
Who was first?
Oh, no.
I don't know who made the motion.
I thought Bill made it, no?
I asked for
made
it.
it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Is there any second? Okay.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Mohammmed,
Yes.
Mayor Jacobs,
Yes.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Morrissette,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kashem,
Yes.
Clerk Commissioner Hodgkins.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Well, Mayor is here, so I'm passing the gaggle.
All right.
Who first? Morrison.
6.2, Mayor.
Coffee break.
There is no coffee breaks. All right, 6.2, consideration.
Okay, turn on the.
Sorry. 6.2, consideration and approval resolution adopting tentative budget for the fiscal year October 1st, 2025, ending October 30th, 2026. Financial Services Director, did your presentation. Resolution number 2025-0 2025-032. Town Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Mayor. For the record, item 6.2 is a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Pembroke Park, Florida, adopting a tentative budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2025, and ending on September 30th, 2026, attached to Exhibit A, determining and fixing the amounts necessary to carry on the government of the town for the ensuing year, determining the amount of applicable funds on hand, estimating receipts and expenditures for all funds, providing for conflicts, severability, and providing for an effective date. May I offer a few preliminary comments, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. A couple observations. One, pursuant to Chapter 200, the tentative budget is adopted after the millage rate, which you just adopted in a proposed form that'll be presented at your final hearing. I just want to offer a little historical comment. I had a conversation earlier with Commissioner Mohammed. She and I spoke through some of the history of the town of Pembroke Park and how the town had historically considered its budget and the various funds within its budget. If you look back on old minutes of prior commission meetings around this time, you'll see there are a number of different action items. There were separate resolutions set out for the sewer enterprise fund. There were separate resolutions set out for the surface water drainage enterprise fund. Last year, your finance consultant, Mr. Delina, had worked to sort of streamline the town's budget process. And what was done last year and what was carried over into this year was incorporating all of the town's funds within the fund budget that's before you under this resolution. It includes your general fund. It includes your wastewater fund. It includes your surface and stormwater funds. All of the various components are wrapped up in the proposed budget that's before you at the moment. In prior years, there was also separate action by the commission that specifically delineated the funding for the pensions. First of all, there's no obligation under state law that you adopt a resolution annually to fund your pensions. As your finance director indicated a few moments ago, the pension contributions for the town are included within the budget that you'll approve at the end of this month and you'll presumably approve in its proposed form this evening. Your code of ordinances, it's section 2-20, states that the commission on an annual basis shall adopt a resolution setting forth the funding for your pension contributions. This resolution that's before you this evening and the final resolution that adopts your budget satisfies the requirement of your town code. So there are a couple of things that have been done in the past that have sort of been piecemeal. All of those various actions have been consumed and wrapped up to the approval of the budget, which is before you at the moment. A few minutes ago, you heard a lengthy and detailed presentation from your finance director. He presented on the millage rate. He also presented on the overall proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. That presentation is incorporated into this item. So unless there's additional questions for either the manager or the finance director, I don't believe your staff has a separate budget, but I just wanted to offer, a separate presentation, but I just wanted to offer that as a predicate to the item before you this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there any public comment? Mr. Roach? Sure. All right. No public comment.
I'll make the
Any
motion.
discussion? No discussion? None. All right. I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2025-032.
I make the motion for resolution 2025-32.
Second it.
Who second? Vice Mayor. All right, roll call. Vice Mayor Kashem,
Yes.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Morrissette,
Yes.
Mayor Jacobs,
Yes.
Clerk Commissioner Hodgkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Attorney report.
Just to comment for the record, your second and final budget hearing will be, I just want to state the date for the record, I believe it is on
The 24th.
September 24th in these chambers. I do have a couple comments under the town attorney report at your regular meeting. I'll reserve for that time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Town manager.
Nothing this evening.
Commissioner Mohammed.
No.
Acting Clerk Commissioner Morrissette.
No.
Clerk Commissioner Hodgkins. Vice Mayor Kashem.
No.
And none for myself. Announcements. Second budget hearing will be Wednesday, September 24th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Mr. Roach, we look forward to seeing you here. Second commission meeting will be Wednesday, September 24th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Workshop commission meeting will be Wednesday,
You said special. It was.
did I say special? I said, okay. Special commission meeting on Wednesday, September 24th, 2025 at 6:30. Workshop commission meeting will be Wednesday, September 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. or as soon as the commission meeting is completed. Regular commission meeting 15th. Someone's got a typo here. That's okay. 15th at 7 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjournment at 6:50.